everyone, welcome on back. My name is Jean. Okay, so I've gotten a lot of people asking me to show how to make dangles, and so I'm going to start out with the process of making our wire loop beads. So that means putting a loop on your bead because you need the loop to hang on to your dangles. Most of your beads come, just plain. And this one's got a double loop on it. So you make the single or the doubles or whatever. I keep this is my little container of goodies. So some of this is bought and stuff. Some of it is costume jewelry that I took apart, like this one's costume jewelry. Some of these are pieces I made, whether I can find them right now. This is from costume jewelry. This one's the one I made. That's a fancier wire wrap, where you wrap the bead, which is a little bit more difficult. We're not doing that. We're doing a simple wire wrap. We're just going to put a loop on our beads. Okay, that's all we're gonna do because that's all you need to make dangles. So there's a couple ways you can go about this. You can get this looper tool. I think that's what it's called. Looks like this, and we'll go over this one, and I have done a video on this in the past. Or you can use wires. You can use your different head pins. I'll just throw some out on here. You can buy in the store that some have a loop on it, but you might want a double loop. Some have the head pin, and some of them have the ball pin, which I don't have. I didn't grab one of them. Okay, and then I just cut some off already, so we're ready. 20 gauge, I use 20, 22 gauge. It's really kind of your preference, how you want to do it. So we got that. I have a couple of my chain link pliers. I call them needle nose pliers because that's what they look like to me anyways. And then round nose pliers. And then a good wire cutter, okay? And I'll link as much of this as I can in the description below. First, let's go over this tool. It's a fairly easy tool to use. There's only one problem I don't like about it. It doesn't always connect your loop very well, okay? So let's just take this, let's see if that's got too big of a hole. Nope, that's gonna work. So to do this, I push my bead all the way down, and then you're going to thread it through, and I'm going to try to hold this the best I can. There's a hole out the other end is where you're going to come out. Okay, you just put it in there like this, hold it tight against there, and I try to hold it really tight, and then give it a good pinch. So it'll cut off the end that you don't need, and then sometimes it gets stuck in there, which can be frustrating because it does get stuck sometimes. There we go. But it makes the loop. Let me hold it. Now you can see it's not totally closed, but this one came out pretty good. So, but if I want it closed a little bit more, because if your jump ring might slip through, I just take my little, clamp it down a little bit. Or you can also get like your round nose in there if it'll fit, and help it down like that too. So either way, and then I flatten it to make sure it's nice and straight again, and then you have your little loop. Okay, so you can do it that way. So that works, pretty good. Most of the time it works pretty good, and we'll do a couple more of those. You can simply take your wire, and you can use this, like say we'll do a bead later, but first I'll show you the process. You take your wire, and like I said, this is a 20 gauge, the silver beading wire I'm using, and we're just going to put and this just indicates how big of the loop you want. So if you go further up, your loop is going to be big and your loop is going to be smaller. That's just the roundness of your loop. So we're just going to go right about in the middle, and we want to go all the way flush down. So we want to flush, so you can't feel it poking above. Okay, and then we're just going to turn it, and then we turn our pliers, and then we turn it, And then we turn our pliers again until it meets, okay? And then you can see, and then I'll straighten it out. This is a softer wire, so my thing bent. And I need to bring it back in and turn it one more down and then straighten it out. Come on, come back up. Just straighten out my wire. And then you have your little loop that way, okay? So it's just simply by doing that. You can do that with your head pin too. So you have your head pin, and you want to loop on the other end because you're going to connect and you're going to put a jump ring on there and connect it to your dangles. So no problem, same thing. This is kind of guessing now how far down we want to go. I probably don't want that much. You know, it's all kind of guessing when you do it this way. That might be too little, but, and then we're going to put it in again, flush, and then just start rolling. And I just kind of pull it back and pull it back. I know you can't, it's hard to see. It's hard for me to hold it for you too. And you just keep rolling it, basically. Oops, I pulled too hard. We're just going to pretend I didn't do that. So that one should have needed a bead. And then I just kind of flatten it down in there. And then you have, I cut it a little too short, but it still worked out okay. Then you have your loop on there. Now, this is so I have a stiffer that only have the 20 gauge down here is all I have. So so you're going to be using this. I'll do the other end of this one, and we'll make another one. So now I have a loop down there, so I'm going to make a double loop, and I'm going to basically do the same process. And you can leave on a little excess. There's something in that hole. We'll go back to that one. Let's see if this one has something in the hole. Nope. Okay. So now we have the one loop. Let's make another loop. Let's cut a little bit of that off. If you have too much, like I'll show you what you do. So you can put many more than one loop in here. So just make sure it is flush. And then just keep looping. And we're going to keep looping. We're going to keep going around. And we're going to go around. We're just making a thicker loop. We're just going around. And I got to get this. I'm going to straighten it out first here. Kind of straighten it out so they kind of match better. And then, let's see, where am I? Loop one more time. So we've got like 3 loops there. I don't know if you can tell. I'll take my little thing and kind of even them out. So now I made it so it's a little more sturdy. You can see I went, so it's got 2, but I went around 3 times. So if you have a longer one, and then we can just take this and pretty it up a little bit, make it more even. Get a hold of it, and you can make it more even. Now, you just have a stronger loop. So instead of just going like this where I just met the wire, I wrapped it around a couple times just to make it stronger. Okay, so simple as that. And then we would be adding a jump ring on. We'd be adding our jump ring on. And we'll get into another video. We'll actually make the dangles. I just want to show you guys how to do your wire loop. And then all we're going to do is we'll just hang that on. And I have a little bit of chain here. And you would just add it anywhere on the chain you want. You know, when you're trying to do this for the camera, and make sure it meets. So you would cut the chain the length you want for what you're going to want. And then you go along and you put your beads all along and make it as full as you want. And then on the bottom, So whichever way you want, your bottom, your top. So I'll make that my top. I might put a lobster in the top. I don't usually make too much ahead of time. I make my beads ahead of time, but I don't make my dangles ahead of time because I like to make my dangles kind of match everything. So I don't know what I would use. So I'm going to take another jump ring, sticking with silver. I grabbed the wrong pliers there. We're going to stick with silver here. Make sure my opening is there. And I'm going to add a lobster to the end. And where's my little end? Because I want that to be the top. Okay. Sorry if I get out of the camera, but you know, beads are the tedious things to show you guys. So now I have a lobster clasp on top that I can just hook this right on to my projects. I'm trying to find one that has a loop on the end. We made these the other day, and these are what we're going to make some dangles for. So now I can just take my chain and hang it on there. And then if you wanted, you know, to change that out later on, I don't like those dangles on there. I just take it off like that. But of course, you'd add a lot more beads. You'd put on the bottom. I always put a fancy charm on the bottom. And then I put all my beads along the way. So again, I'll show you one more time just how to do. We're just learning how to do the wire loop today. If you have a bead that has a big hole, do I have a little silver bead down here? Okay, so if you have a bead that has a bigger hole, you're going to need to use they're like little, almost like a seed bead. It's pretty close to the size of a seed bead. Okay, so we're going to put that first, and that's, you can see that the head pin won't go through that. But now your bead, which bead do we want to use? This one has a pretty big hole. Will not go through either one of them. So keep that in mind if you're making a bunch of wire loop beads. So that's how you take care of that problem. You can use smaller seed beads. That's just what I have out here right now. You know, whatever does not slip off the end. Okay, and then you do the same thing. And I'm just going to cut a little bit off. And then I'm going to make my loop. Find the right one. And I'll make a little bit bigger loop. I'll go more. Oop, wrong one. Where are they? Here they are. I'll go all the way down, just about all the way down to the end. Okay, and then you just go like that, and you feel it, you're good. So turn, and then let go and bring it back a little bit. Turn, let go, bring it back. And all you're doing is grabbing onto that wire. And I'm going to go down because oh, that's too big. I got to turn until it meets. Then I just straighten it out. Now I should have cut a little bit more off, but I wanted to show you a big loop. This is about the biggest loop you can go. Let's get that in there better. Okay, and then I just straighten the wire and kind of straighten it back up. Okay. Whoop, come back here. So I left too much, but I wanted to show you how big a loop. So you don't need that big of a loop either. This is a difference in the size of loops. You definitely do not need that big a loop. I usually stay down, I'll try to show you right about that far up. That's more than big enough. You don't need a loop. Look how big a loop that made by, you know. For me, that's as far as I go. Now let's use this tool again so I can show you how to use that again. This purple one. Just a really cheap bead there. And then again, all we're taking it, bringing it on through. You can see it comes through that hole. Then I just hold it. You don't have to do it this way. You can let it fly, but I don't want to let that fly. I have dogs, and You know my story, 1/8 needles. And then I just kind of grab, give it a good squeeze at the end there. And that one actually, again, did pretty good. So that would be the easy way. It's a cheap bead. I won't be using that bead. Is if you're a beginner, you want to go ahead and try. That's what I started with. This is the tool I started with. Now, I pretty much will do this because I can use my own wire. You know, so I can use some of my own wire if I want to. Or say all I have is, you know, the head, or let's see, which pin do I have? The pin with the loop on. I don't have one out here. And I want a double loop on here, like this pin. Say all I have in my stash left is a loop, but I need another loop. So I can easily do it with this device, or I can easily just hand make mine myself. And I'll make another one right here. And we'll go down. And I lost it, but that's okay. It's okay if you lose it. And bring it back up. Because all you're doing is going around. Look at that. Look at that beautiful little loop I have now. And see how easy it is? Make your own. Beautiful. So give that a try. You have any questions, or if there's another technique you want me to show you, this is what the technique, basically the simplest technique to make your dangles. There is other ways to make dangles and wire wrap, just wire wrap only, and add on to your chains, but I'm not going to show you that later on. I'm making this as simple as possible for you guys because I know a lot of you are beginners out there. So you can either pick up this tool, but give this a try. Once I got the hang of doing it, it actually works really good. And then, like I said, you can buy all different wires and stuff like that yourself if you don't want to use those head pins, you know. All right, guys. If you have any questions, leave them below in the comments. And then our next video, either next week or the week after, coming up though, we'll actually make the dangles. So we'll put beads on chains and make different dangles. And I'll show you how much I fill my dangles and what I use and stuff like that. So this is just the first step. All right, guys, as always, we'll see you in the next one. Bye now.